All right, I'm late. I know, but here we are. So having this conversation now, fellow Bears fans, welcome back. Get on in here. But I'm a little late. Things have been happening. It's been a very stressful time. You don't understand. But we are here now. We're gonna talk a little bit about the free agency and off season and draft and all that good stuff. As we get close to all that kind of kicking off. So I sent out a poll and we got 73 votes. Basically, I said, what's most important on your mind this offseason? I got the overwhelming 48% starting O-line, so almost half the people. Trubisky's competition was 38%, and last at 14%, which is still almost 20% of the people, is the draft class. And so I could have probably added draft class / free agency. That probably would have made sense. But, I do things late at night. Sometimes I always think the clearest. But so with that being said, just kind of diving into all of that different things. I'm going to circle back. I'm going to do this first. So number one, I'm going to start with free agency because that's coming up. And yeah. So what I did is I pulled up the top 101 free agents on NFL.com. If you've been listening to me for over a year, I'm not the biggest with the free agency stuff. I understand it, of course. I know what it is, but I don't stay up to date on everything with contracts and all that different. Who's that? If it's big news, I'll talk about it. But mainly in the offseason, my focus is on the draft. So I'm looking at the top free agents. And, there's some that have been having conversation all year long. And I'm looking as far as my wish list. What's my wish list? I think everybody has a wish list. Now, the Bears don't have a ton of money to spend. And honestly, we don't have a ton of places that we need people. But when I look at our team, the number one thing I'm looking at is cornerback. And that's not a position I think a lot of people are talking about. Apparently, Prince is a free agent this year. I didn't even know that. But even if he wasn't, I've been talking about that opposite side. As much as I respect him, we got to get younger, athletic, and just way back in the middle of the season when I was talking about getting Jalen Ramsey or, if we should, my case was, can you imagine, this is way back. I'm sorry, a little tangent, but I talked about last year, the pass rush, and then I showed you every sack from last year, and I told you our coverage is what got most of the sacks for us. 2 years ago now. And then I showed you all those sacks, and then this season they proceeded not to be great at pass rush, as I've been saying. And so the strength is in our coverage, and Trevathan and Roquan being hurt didn't help. This season, and then Prince just really is not there anymore. So imagine having a bona fide lockdown corner opposite Kyle Fuller, who's not a lockdown corner, but is great in zone. And so that's just the top end of Jalen Ramsey. But even in the mid tier, if we just had a good cornerback over there, I think it would really take our defense to the next level. So that's my number one thing in my mind. And then outside of that, I think a pass rusher opposite Khalil Mack, like Leonard Floyd's going to be here, it seems like. But a pass rusher opposite Khalil Mack, honestly, to me, is icing on the cake. I wouldn't say that's a top priority for me, but definitely something I would want. Obviously, if we could get a nice left tackle, that would be great. As I talked about before, I think it helps three positions to get Leno to right tackle and Massey to guard. And that's if we're not just completely blowing that up. So there's definitely some O-line there. But outside of that, I think we're okay. I mean, there's not a lot of positions I'm begging for. Even with Clint Dix in the strong safety position, I think it's easier to find somebody with the in-the-box skills that Amos displayed that can get us back to more of a natural balance instead of what we were doing last year. So for me, I'm looking at corner number one. And then after that, I'm looking at left tackle. And then after that, I'm looking at interior O-line. So O-line is 2 and 3 for me. And then after that, I'm thinking about safety, and then after that, I'm thinking about edge rushers. So that's kind of where I'm at. So anyway, looking at this top 101 list, some of my people I would pick out, I guess going straight down the list based on how they rank it. Number one for me would be Byron Jones. Well, I wouldn't say number one, but Byron Jones is a player that has a lot of respect, a lot of athleticism. Didn't have the best year this year, but is very much a zone corner, and we're very much a zone team. And Kyle Fuller does his best work in the zone. And so I think if you had a guy similar to Kyle Fuller on the opposite end, it'd be really hard. Now, that doesn't mean we're the best at taking the deep ball away, but honestly, I think a really good defense keeps it all in front of them, and they drive hard on the ball. And I think Byron Jones is a guy that's fast enough. If you did try to challenge him deep, he can do it better than Prince does. But he also can play the underneath stuff as well, if not just slightly worse than Kyle Fuller. And so Byron Jones would be a very interesting pick. It would cost a lot of money, and so I would have to imagine we have to move some things around to get him. It wouldn't just be a straight up signing, because if it was, that would really limit us in what we can do otherwise. But that's definitely more like even though corner's my number one pick, I would say Byron Jones is like a dream scenario. I wouldn't say that that's super realistic, but I do think because of his skill set, it makes sense to go after somebody like him. But the thing is, there's plenty of veteran corners in this, like a whole lot of veteran corners in this group. I mean, Chris Harris Jr. is out there, who is older and more of a man corner, but he's out there. You got one guy that really has my ears perked up is Eli Apple out of Ohio State, formerly with the Giants, formerly with the Saints. The Saints might try to go after him, but he's only 24 years old, and he's still being molded. He's really quick, also very physical. I just really think we could do some good things with him. And overall, like I said, we just got to get more athletic and younger at that position. And so I understand we still have Kevin Tolliver. We still have Duke Shelley, who's more of a nickel. And so there's a lot of options with younger guys, but we do want a veteran guy, I think. And Kevin Tolliver deserves a shot, but I would not be mad if you brought in Eli Apple or you brought in some of these other guys and let them battle it out and, have two guys on the roster. So that's what I'm thinking. Kendall Fuller, Kyle Fuller's younger brother. Really big year for the team, even though defense wasn't great. He stepped up because they lost like Eric Berry. They lost I forgot who that top corner. They had a big time corner over there at one point, but they really lost their secondary, and he stepped up this year. And so the flexibility, I know he's a nickel for a little bit to play safety and then also to, be a zone corner. I think, having two Fullers would be cool. And I definitely think they're both tough. And again, to me, the best scenario is to have a mirror of Kyle Fuller on the other side. And so what we do to the right side of a defense, we could do to the left side of a defense. And I really think Kendall would be a nice, cool pickup for that as well. And so between Eli Apple, Kendall Fuller, you got on the high end, you got Byron Jones. There's a couple other corners out here that I don't think are fits for us necessarily, but you could definitely try it out. You got Ronald Darby, who's been kind of injured. You got some other guys that are more man corners, but I do think there's a number of guys out there that we could go for. And so, but as far as my wish list, Eli Apple, Kendall Fuller, Byron Jones will be on that list. So then talking about the O-line, of course, you're not going to have franchise left tackles just sitting out there. And so there's some names out here like Brandon Sheriff, but honestly, the interior to me is secondary. A nice left tackle would do something. But there isn't premium guys out there. Jack Conklin comes to mind. I love him. Now, I haven't watched completely all of his play in the last few years, but I loved him coming out. He was an All-Pro his rookie year. So this is a guy that can play ball. And so I do think he's a right tackle. And so what that does, that allows you to try Massey inside at right guard and try to move Coward out of there because he's horrible. But it doesn't fix everything, but it at least gives you some flexibility. And so then you got to worry about, is Leno going to stay at left tackle or you find somebody in the draft? So there's that. But that would probably be the number one guy that we're talking about. So then outside of Conklin, I mean, you got Balaga. He's still up there, and I don't know. He's injured a lot. I'm not sure he's the player he used to be. That's not somebody I would look at. Graham Glasgow is somebody I would definitely be interested in. I don't know. That might give you some flexibility because let's say worst case scenario is going to be Massey and Leno again. But then you have Glasgow and Whitehair at guard, and then you have James Daniels at center, because I still think he's a center even at the end of the day. I just think Whitehair, I think Whitehair is not a center more than Daniels is not a guard, if that makes sense. So then I think Glasgow gives you some flexibility in that middle, and he's really good, very reliable. Young, and so that would be a cool pickup to get. But again, that then leaves you with the same problem on the tackles. But again, I don't think there's anybody in the free agency that completely fixes and clears up what we want. So there's that there. But he would be the next guy after Conklin that I would be looking at. And then kind of going through this list, there's nobody that really excites me on the O-line outside of that. I mean, I like Andrews Pete. I still think he's going to end up back with the Saints, but he's definitely a guard. I don't think he gives you much flexibility. So some people say Costanzo. I think he's heading towards the twilight of his years. Plus, the Colts, I don't think going to let him go. So free agency wise, just not a whole lot there. Some other things that stick out to me. It is really hard for me to say this, but I'm going to say Bud Dupree. The thing is, he did so well this year that I really think he's going to try to command a big contract. Always was a fan of Bud Dupree coming out as a complete player. And he really turned it up this year, as people do at contract years. I just don't think the money would be justified because, again, the edge rusher, the opposite Khalil Mack, I think is really icing on the cake. And so I can't really say that I would be all for paying for Bud unless he really had a reasonable contract. Some other guys, a lot of guys don't fit what we do. I don't really see putting money into a lot of these guys as far as the edge rushers. So I really would think about, of course, you got Ngakoue, who comes from the Jags, but he's a premium player. So that's an option, but that's a high-end option. Bud Dupree, and then after that, I don't know that there's too many guys that I would be super interested in. Vic Beasley, if you gave me, actually Vic Beasley and Marcus Golden, if you gave me a 1-year cheaper deal, I'd be interested in bringing them in. But honestly, there's nobody I'm paying big money for outside of Ngakoue, and I don't think we need to pay big money for a pass rusher, especially with Leonard Floyd still on the payroll. And then there's safety. A good amount of safeties, veteran safeties in this class. Nobody that super excites me, but there's definitely guys that fit. I mean, you're talking about more in-the-box hidden type safeties. You got from the Vikings in our division, Anthony Harris is going to be out there, but he's going to draw a lot of attention. I don't know. Jimmy Ward's been very hurt, so I don't know that I would necessarily go all out for him. Um, and then you got Carl Joseph, who's been hurt but is very, very young. And so coming off the Raiders, that might be somebody you want to look at. McLeod, I'm not super into. Adrian Phillips, good special teamer, not super into him as a safety. So there's a couple guys out there that you could look for, but really nobody that I'm jumping up and down. And safety is a kind of a young man's game, which is weird because you can be really good at a young age now at safety, but at the same time, veterans, are just smarter. And I don't think this free. I mean, you got Justin Simmons at the top, but I don't think he's leaving. And I think he's more of a free safety. So we really need more of a hammer than we do. We need a person that can roam the middle of the field. So, excuse me. So anyway, free agency, that's kind of the people I'm looking at. I'm not banking on us making a big splash in free agency. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Von Bell is out there too, which I do really like him because he is a good box safety and he's young. Look, if we were to get Von Bell and Eli Apple, I would be extremely happy with our defense because Eli is young, so is Von. Ohio State guys, competitive, athletic. And I think if you couldn't get them in a specific role and produce, you just really got bad coaching. So I really would love that, to be honest with you. But, yeah, again, So anyway, that's kind of with free agency. Now let me bounce over real quick to what everybody's been talking about. So number one is the offensive line. I'm not going to get into a soapbox speech about that because I've talked about it all year. If you were listening, then you understand how I feel about that. Now, as far as the free agency, we kind of talked about that. Trades, there can be any trade, but the only one that's really talked about is the Trent Williams thing. I'm not giving Trent Williams a lot of money. I'm not trading a lot for Trent Williams. Recently, who was it? Oh, it was a cornerback that just got traded. AJ Bouye for 4th round pick. I love Bouye. I wish we got him. But if you're talking about like that, a 5th round pick, 4th round pick, I could do it. His contract is fat though, so and I'm not giving him an extension, and he's old, so he's not going to be here for a long time. I'm not in love with the idea of going after Trent Williams. And so with free agency and trade we could talk about the draft. Now, if you paid attention to me prior, when I talked about the Bears, there was one, first of all, this O-line class is pretty good. The tackle class is amazing. Very top heavy, but amazing. And then the interior line has some good depth. Now, if you heard me talk about players, you know that Josh Jones out of Houston is a guy I had my sights on. And unfortunately, the thing I didn't want to happen happened, in the fact that he got really big on the radar as we get closer to the draft. And so now people didn't care a lot about him. Still like a 2nd, 3rd round pick status. Now everybody's talking 1st round pick as far as mock drafts. I don't know what the NFL thinks of him. He might be, but it seems like the hype might cause us to have to go in the 1st round if we were to get him. I don't know. Sitting with my picks, I might not, just because there are some alternative options. But yeah, it seems like to guarantee Josh Jones, we would have to go up into the 1st round. And honestly, he's the type of player who I could see there being a shocker pick and him going mid-1st round. I liked him from the beginning. Some people caught on, and so it is what it is. There's some guys that are talked about as top tackles that I don't think are good. And so we'll see how it all shakes out, but that's just my opinion. So Josh Jones is who I had my sights on in the 2nd round, either moving up in the 2nd round or moving into the 1st round. But as a GM, I don't know that I'm moving all my chips for that. Because there's a couple guys. So Lucas Neon got a TCU. I talked about him. Some people have an injury scare with him, but I really think that he's going to be there for us in the second round, and I would fully be comfortable with drafting him. And so I'm okay with that. But those are the two guys I'm really thinking about. Now, of course, if we got in position to get an Andrew Thomas, that'd be great. Austin Jackson, that'd be great, because right now, Wills and Wurs is super top right now. Wurs just blew the combine up, so now everybody's on his jock, even though he was good before. And so, but that is pushing Andrew Thomas out of Georgia down, who I think is probably the best, not the best, but definitely in my top three. So that's pushing him down a little bit. That's also pushing and Becton, people like him, which I don't. I think he's horrible. But they're both pushing Andrew Thomas and Austin Jackson down. But I think Josh Jones has leapfrogged in Austin Jackson, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a couple moves we could make in the second round. But I do think there's a drop off with tackles between really good and just okay. And so it just depends on how much we want it. Now, on the opposite end, and not opposite end, but on the interior, a lot of good names. I don't think any of these interior guys are going super high, but a lot of good names. But it depends on what we're going to do as an offense. Because you got guys like Kevin Dotson and Robert Hunt out of Louisiana Lafayette, who I think are amazing, big bully maulers. But it's like, are we a power run team? Because they're not going to be as good in screen. They're not going to be as good in space blocks, but they can move the trenches. And so it just depends, is that what we want to do? Then you got Ben Bredesen out of Michigan. I talked about him too. I absolutely love him. I think he can do it all, and I would love to have him on our team. But again, that doesn't provide the same flexibility getting the left tackle does, because the left tackle solidifies three spots: left tackle, right guard. And so it's a toss up, but there's some guys. I mean, I like the Oregon guys all around. I think, well, actually, let me take that back. I don't like the tackle from Oregon, Throckthorn. I like the interior guys from Oregon. And then you got a couple guys from Clemson, one at tackle, one at guard. I like both of them. I don't like the Georgia guy or the Georgia guys. I'm not a big fan of the LSU guys. I think they're really bad. But there's some other options out there. And so you got the Michigan guys, you got the Oregon guys, you got the Louisiana guys, you got the Clemson guys, you got Tyler out of Wisconsin, who's going to be coveted. So there's some options. There's definitely some options on the O-line. But overall, I think going into next year, you're really going to have kind of the same core group. I don't think they're going to blow it up. They 100% could. It's 50-50. But in my personal opinion, I don't think they're going to blow it up. And I do think we need a change at right guard, however that looks. Now, if we just get a guy that swaps in at right guard, that's cool. If we can get a guy to get right tackle and then move Massey over, try him at right guard with another person behind him that can take over, that's better. If we can get a left tackle that lets Leno be right guard or right tackle and lets Massey be right guard and plus a young guy, that'd be excellent. So it's a number of moves we can go. So when we're talking about the starting O-line, it's definitely a combination of the draft and free agency. I don't think free agency has a whole lot of options for us. The trade market is never huge, but there's some veteran guys like a Trent Williams that's out there. Shoot, I don't know. Honestly, if they let Conklin go after the year they had, they might, and if they're letting Tannehill and Mariota go, they might be willing to let Taylor Lewan go. And so if we can maybe do a trade for Taylor Lewan instead of Trent Williams, I'd be down for that. So there's a lot that can go into that. But honestly, I think Whitehair Daniels are going to be playing. And I really think Leno's going to be playing. So, and probably Massey. But Massey's less assured than Leno's. But I really think Leno, Whitehair, and Daniels are all going to be starting one way or the other. So the two other positions, there's a number of ways we can go about filling it. So jumping over to Trubisky's competition. Free agency, I'm telling you right now, I'm not into it. I'm not looking. I know the names. I am not looking to pay anybody no big money, any of these quarterbacks, especially the ones that are used to being starters, unless we can get a significant reduction on the deal, which I highly doubt we can. I'm not looking for it. And so there's the questions about trading for Alex Smith. There's the questions, well, that's number one usually. It's Alex Smith, because Tannehill's a free agent that you would have to sign. Mariota's a guy you would have to sign. So maybe if you threw another name out to me, fine. But overall, how I feel, I'm not huge on the backup quarterback thing. I don't think there's a savior out there. And if they were a savior, they would already be playing for somebody, or they would cost a lot of money. And so if you're talking about drafting a guy to have a plan for, I could talk to you about that as far as competition. But as far as free agency, I'm off of it. I don't want to sign anybody to no big money to be a bridge quarterback. And so that's just how I feel. I know some people want Bridgewater. They want Tannehill. They want to go after Brady. They want to go after Phillip Rivers, whatever. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'm good with it. So, yeah, that's how I feel. So I'm looking towards the draft. You already heard what I felt about Jalen Hurts a couple times. I've been through the quarterback class, and off the top of my head, my feelings haven't really changed. I talked about what I thought about Jake Fromm and the other quarterbacks. People were asking me that. I already kind of talked about it. So go back to those episodes if you want to see how I feel about those players. I don't think anybody's super worth it because we don't have mid-round picks. If they were somehow to be in the 5th round, then okay, but I doubt it. And I'm not spending a 2nd-round pick on Fromm or Eason, even though he's probably going to be a 1st-rounder. I'm not spending my Anthony Gordon. Hell no. I don't even know what people see in him. But yeah, my feelings on the quarterback class is kind of where it is. There's not there's not a lot of great quarterbacks to me. I think you got Burrow, very top notch. Of course, we're not going to get him. And then I like Jalen Hurts. As far as his perception and talent, his talent's really good. His perception is something that can push him to us, especially because people want Eason, Jordan Love, Herbert, and I think none of them are that good. So fine, that pushes him down towards us. I'm fine with that, especially because we got 2 2nd-round picks. But other than that, I'm not trying to trade up to get Hurts. I'm not using 2 2nd-round picks to move up in the 2nd round, not moving to the 1st round. If he falls to us, I'm fine with it. I think he gives us immediate talent as a red zone quarterback, and I think we give some time to groom him. But other than that, I'm not really enthusiastic about any of these quarterbacks in this draft class. And I haven't looked at everybody, but as far as those top 10 guys, that's just how I feel. So Trubisky's competition, again, the fact that Trubisky has to have competition, he's here, says a lot. They're committed to him. People keep saying, oh, they're lying. What's there to lie about? Why do they need to lie? I don't think, even if they bring in competition, I don't think any of it's going to mean a whole lot. You got to spend big money or big capital, either a big contract for a top quarterback or a high round pick for a drafted quarterback in order to really take another path into the future. And I don't think we're doing that right now. And I don't think we're bringing in a bridge quarterback with Trubisky on the team. If we were to trade Trubisky, now look, could they have lied and said we're committed to Trubisky and then we trade him? Yes, because if you say we're done with Trubisky, we think he sucks, then it's going to be hard to get a good deal on a trade. So I can see that. If they up and traded Trubisky, then I'm like, okay, bridge quarterback, then we're going to get another quarterback. But the fact that Trubisky's still here, I don't think that's the direction. I think the direction is to force feed Trubisky until everybody gets fired. So that's how I'm at with it. Honestly, out of this topics, Trubisky's competition is not high for me because I don't think they are really in position where they want to push him or they want to get rid of him. So I think we're just going to have Trubisky time, and yeah, that's where we are with it. And then the draft class, I guess I'll talk more about it as we get close. The draft's a crapshoot. I don't know, man. I have no idea. I'm getting through these players. There's some players I like that might be in our position. But overall, I don't think our draft class is going to change our fortunes, especially because we got a lot of starters that are returning, and we kind of had a core of the team. So we just need complementary pieces. So there we are. Trying to think if there's any of these questions that people submitted that I need to answer. Let's see. Not really. I think I answered most of this stuff. Somebody asked if there a QB in the NFL that's worse than Trubisky. Yes, absolutely there is. Somebody says Nagy's got to be smart enough to use what he has. I don't agree with that. I really don't. I hear this narrative now, like, you got to do what works. No, you don't. No, you don't. Ask Lamar Jackson and all of them that. Yes, it could work now, but how you win in football is documented. Yes, we can win some regular season games. Yes, we can have some decent numbers. We did that last year, and guess where it got us? And so, no, there is a formula to winning football. And so I'm not about to run Trubisky around just because it looks good, because it feels good, and is successful in the game. Like, stop trying to put makeup on the pig. Like, he is what he is. And so, no, I don't agree with that at all. I'm not blaming Nagy because Nagy's calling stuff that a quarterback should, any starting NFL quarterback should be able to execute. So there's that. And then there's other factors too, but I'm not blaming Nagy on that. People talking about the tight end situation. I've talked about that ad nauseum. I'm not here for that conversation. I'm really not here for that conversation at all. Yeah, I think that's it. So, but if you got questions, go to the comment section. Let me know. Let me know what you think about free agency, the draft, and the off season in general. What are you looking for? What's realistic? Blah, blah, blah. Wish list, all that good stuff. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, stay up and bear down.